I've never liked walking home at night. Even now, at 28, the dark still makes my skin crawl the same way it did when I was a kid. I always told myself it was childish, that there's nothing out there in the shadows except wind and stray cats. But last November, something changed that forever. Now I don't walk anywhere alone, because I know what's waiting on that road. I was working late that night, closing shift at the auto shop where I handled repairs and paperwork. It was well past midnight when I finally locked up and stepped outside. The air was cold, the kind that bites through your jacket and makes every breath visible. My car had refused to start earlier that day, and the tow truck wouldn't come until morning. I didn't live far, just under 2 miles, through a back road lined with trees. So I decided to walk. Bad decision. The road to my house wasn't exactly scenic. A narrow stretch of cracked asphalt, winding through a patch of woods, barely lit by a few flickering streetlights. Beyond those, it was nothing but darkness. I zipped my jacket, put on my headphones, and started walking. The night was quiet, too quiet. Even the crickets had gone silent. My boots echoed against the pavement, steady and loud. The sound was oddly comforting, until I noticed there was another set of footsteps behind me. At first, I thought it was an echo, but when I slowed down, the sound didn't. Someone was walking behind me. I turned around. Nothing. The road stretched out behind me, empty except for the dim orange glow of a single streetlight. The air was still, not even a breeze. "Relax," I muttered to myself. "You're just tired." I started walking again, faster this time. My hands were shoved deep into my pockets, eyes fixed straight ahead. But I could feel it. That crawling sensation on the back of my neck. The instinct that tells you when you're being watched. Then came the whisper. It was faint, barely audible under the rustle of leaves. "Daniel." I froze. My name. No one was around. No houses nearby. No reason anyone should be out here. I yanked my headphones off and spun around again. Still nothing. Only the road and the fog beginning to creep along its edges. I started running. I must have sprinted half a mile before I stopped to catch my breath. My chest ached, and my hands were trembling. I pulled out my phone, 1:24 a.m., and tried calling a cab. But the signal was gone. No bars. That's when I heard it again. "Daniel." Closer this time. It wasn't just a whisper. It was a voice. Low, slow, almost familiar. "Don't run. You'll make it worse." Every muscle in my body froze. I turned toward the sound, my flashlight app trembling in my hand. The beam cut through the fog and caught movement. Something tall, hunched, standing in the middle of the road, about 50 feet away. It wasn't a person, at least not anymore. Its arms were too long, stretching almost to its knees. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side, like it was studying me. The moment my light touched its face, it snapped upright and smiled. I ran. I didn't care where. I just needed to get away. The road curved ahead, and I could see the faint outline of the old Miller Bridge. It was close to town. If I could cross it, I'd be safe. But the footsteps came again, faster this time, heavy and wet, like something dragging through mud. It was following me. I didn't dare look back. I just ran until my lungs screamed. When I finally reached the bridge, I stopped. The bridge was old, made of creaking wooden planks and rusted rails. A faded sign hung crooked. "Do not cross after dark." I'd laughed at that sign as a kid, but standing there that night, I didn't feel like laughing. Behind me, the fog thickened. I could barely see 5 feet ahead. The road, the trees, everything swallowed in gray. And then, through that haze, I saw the thing, standing at the edge of the fog, closer now. It didn't walk like a person. Its movements were jerky, twitchy, like a puppet being yanked by invisible strings. But what scared me most wasn't the way it moved. It was what it said next. "You shouldn't have left me, Daniel." I stumbled back. "What do you want?" Its head twitched. "You forgot." "Forgot what?" It stepped closer, into the light. Its face came into view, pale, wet, with deep hollow sockets where eyes should have been. But somehow it was still smiling. "Home," it said softly. "You left me home." My stomach turned. That voice, it sounded like my brother's. But that was impossible. My brother, Lucas, had died 10 years ago. I took a step back, shaking my head. "You're not real." It tilted its head again. "Then why do I remember the water?" My knees went weak. My throat closed. The water. I hadn't thought about that night in years. The night Lucas and I had gone swimming at the quarry. He'd been 12. I was 17. He slipped on a rock, hit his head, and went under. I tried to save him. I swear I did. But by the time I pulled him out, he wasn't breathing. The doctors said it was an accident, but I never told them everything. That I'd pushed him. We'd been fighting. He'd told me he hated me, and I'd shoved him. Hard. And now, standing in that fog, something wearing his voice whispered, "You let me drown." I stumbled backward onto the bridge. "Stop, please." Its smile widened. "You promised you wouldn't leave me." The fog wrapped around me, thicker, colder, until I could barely breathe. The thing took another step forward. Its face began to change, the features twisting, softening, becoming more like his. My brother's eyes, my brother's mouth, my brother's broken voice. "Come home, Daniel." The bridge groaned beneath me. I could see something dark seeping through the wood. Water. The river below churned violently, like something alive. I turned to run, but the planks splintered under my feet. I crashed through, falling into freezing black water. The current dragged me under. I fought to surface, but something wrapped around my ankle, fingers pulling me down. I screamed underwater, lungs burning. Then I saw him, Lucas, floating just beneath me, his face pale and still. His eyes opened. "You forgot me," he whispered through the water. He grabbed my wrist and pulled, hard. The last thing I remember before everything went black was his face, smiling the same way that thing had. When I woke up, I was lying on the riverbank. The sky was gray, morning light breaking through the fog. My clothes were soaked and my body ached. For a moment, I thought it had been a nightmare. Until I looked down. There were handprints around my wrist. Small, pale, like a child's. I stumbled to my feet and ran the rest of the way home. My mind kept trying to make sense of it. Maybe I slicked, maybe I imagined it. But deep down, I knew better, because that night didn't end there. For the next few days, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard water dripping. My dreams were filled with fog, the sound of footsteps, and that voice whispering from the dark. Then things started moving in my house. At first, it was small. A door creaking open on its own, my phone sliding off the table. Then, one night, I woke to the sound of running water. The bathtub was full, and written on the mirror in fog was a single word: home. I called my best friend Mark the next morning. He was the only one who knew what happened to Lucas, at least the truth. "Man, you're exhausted," he said. "You almost drowned. You're seeing things." "Nark," I said, my voice shaking. "He's back." He laughed, but it was nervous. "Don't do this to yourself. You've been through." I wanted to believe him. But that night, when I turned off the lights, I heard the front door open downstairs. Footsteps, slow, wet. I sat frozen in bed, holding my breath. The sound came up the stairs, one creak at a time. Then, from the dark hallway, his voice. "Why did you leave me there, Danny?" My heart stopped. Nobody had called me Danny in years. Not since him. The doorknob turned. I scrambled for the lamp, but the bulb flickered and went out. The door opened slowly. Standing in the doorway was a figure, soaked, dripping, and smiling. His hair hung over his face, but I didn't need to see to know. It was him, Lucas. "Come home," he whispered. The walls began to bleed water, dripping down like rain. The floorboards warped and cracked. I backed into the corner, trembling. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're not real." He stepped closer. "Then why can't you wake up?" The room tilted. My vision blurred. Everything went black again. When I woke up, I was in my bed. The sunlight poured through the window. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. There were muddy footprints leading from my bedroom door to the window and out into the yard. I ran outside. The ground was wet, the grass torn up, and by the edge of my driveway, I saw something half buried in the dirt. A bracelet. The same one Lucas used to wear. I moved out of that house a week later, sold everything. I couldn't stay there anymore. Not with the whispers, the footprints, the water stains that appeared on the walls every morning. But sometimes, when I drive home late at night, I take a different route. I avoid that road. I never cross the bridge. Still, I can't escape it. Last night, on my way home, I saw him again, standing under a streetlight, smiling. He lifted his hand, the same pale, wrinkled hand that dragged me under the water, and pointed down the road. "Walk me home," he said, and then he was gone. Now I don't drive. I don't walk alone. And if you ever find yourself on the old Miller Bridge and you hear someone whisper your name from the fog, don't answer, because sometimes the road home doesn't want to let you go.
If you like this story, then you should listen to this chilling story.
It was almost midnight when I left the office. Everyone else had gone hours ago. The lights off, the cubicles empty, the silence heavy enough to make my footsteps echo through the hallways. I'd stayed late to finish a report that no one would probably read, the kind of thing that made me wonder why I even bothered anymore. I worked for an insurance company in downtown Pittsburgh. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. That night, I decided to walk home. It wasn't far, about a 30-minute walk through the quieter parts of the city, and my apartment was near the river. I used to enjoy those walks. The hum of the streetlights, the smell of rain on pavement, the empty roads that made me feel like the world had stopped just for a while. But that night, something felt different, like the city was watching me. It started small. The moment I stepped out of the building, I felt that weird pull, like I shouldn't be out there. The wind was still, the air thick with humidity, and the sky was bruised with clouds that hid the moon. The street was nearly empty. Just a few parked cars, the faint buzz of a flickering light above the alley, and the echo of my footsteps bouncing off the walls. I put my hands in my coat pockets and started walking. My name's Ethan Cole, by the way. 33 years old. No wife, no kids, no one waiting for me at home. Just a cat named Milo and a fridge full of takeout boxes. Maybe that's why I didn't think much of it when I noticed the footsteps. At first, I thought they were my own echo. But then I slowed down, and they didn't. There it was, that soft tap, tap, tap behind me, perfectly in sync. I stopped walking. The sound stopped too. When I turned around, the street was empty. Just the steady hum of the light and a trash can tipped over near the corner. Probably just someone else heading home, I muttered. But my voice sounded small in the silence. I started walking again, faster this time. The sound returned, faint but there. Tap, tap. My heart started to race. "Hey," I called out, trying to sound annoyed instead of scared. "If this is some kind of joke, knock it off." No answer. The air felt heavier now. My breath came out in shallow clouds. The streets that had always felt familiar suddenly seemed foreign. Longer, darker, wrong. I passed an intersection I'd walked 100 times before, but the street signs were missing. The buildings looked different too. Windows boarded up, doors chained shut. And that's when I noticed the man. He was standing at the far end of the street, just barely within the glow of a flickering lamp. Tall, thin, wearing a long black coat that almost blended into the shadows. At first, I thought he was just another late-night commuter. But then he moved, slow, deliberate, stepping forward without making a sound. Something about him felt off. His posture was too stiff, his head tilted just slightly to the side as though studying me. I turned the corner and quickened my pace. When I glanced back, he was gone. I told myself to calm down. People walk at night all the time. Maybe I was being paranoid. But when I reached the bridge, the shortcut that led directly to my street, I stopped dead in my tracks. The bridge was closed. A giant "Roadwork Ahead" sign blocked the entrance, the entire structure swallowed by fog. That bridge had been fine this morning. I checked my phone. No signal. A drop of rain hit my cheek. Then another. The drizzle turned into a steady fall, soaking through my jacket. "Great," I muttered. "Just great." I turned around to find another way home, and that's when I saw him again. He was standing at the other end of the street now, closer. Same black coat, same unnatural stillness. But this time, I could see his face. Pale, almost gray, his mouth stretched into a faint, crooked smile. "Anne?" They weren't looking at me. They were looking through me. I took a step back. He took one forward. That's when I ran. The rain blurred everything, streets, lights, even my sense of direction. My shoes splashed through puddles as I sprinted through narrow alleys, cutting across side streets, just trying to get away. I didn't stop until I reached a small park near the edge of town. It was deserted, the swings creaking in the wind. I turned in circles, scanning for him. Nothing. The rain had stopped. The silence was deafening. I laughed nervously. "You're losing it, Ethan." And then I heard a voice behind me. "Going somewhere?" I spun around. He was standing by the park gate, hands at his sides, coat dripping wet. His head tilted again, that same slow, deliberate motion. "You're not supposed to be here," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. Calm. Too calm. "Who are you?" I shouted. He smiled wider. "You don't remember?" I backed away. "Stay the hell away." His grin faded. "You really don't, do you?" Then his voice changed, softer, almost pleading. "You promised you'd come back for me." I froze. That voice. It wasn't a stranger's voice. It sounded like my brother's. "David," I whispered. He took another step closer. "You left me there, Ethan." "No, that's not possible." "You—" He tilted his head, and for a moment, I could see it. Beneath the pale skin and black eyes, my brother's face. But David had been dead for 15 years. We'd been kids when it happened. He was 12, I was 17. We used to sneak out and play near the old storm drain tunnels by the river. One night, the current got too strong. He slipped. I tried to save him, but I couldn't reach. They never found his body. Our parents moved away a year later. I stayed, tried to forget. But now, standing there in that park, I realized something awful. This wasn't a dream. He'd found me. "I didn't mean to," I started, but my voice broke. He stepped closer, his wet shoes leaving dark prints on the pavement. "I waited," he said. "You said you'd come back." "I couldn't," I yelled. "They wouldn't let me." His expression didn't change. "You didn't even try." The air grew colder. My breath came out in mist. He reached out a pale hand. "Come home, Ethan." I turned and ran. I didn't know where I was going. The streets twisted, unfamiliar. My legs burned. My lungs screamed. But I couldn't stop. I could hear footsteps behind me again, faster, heavier. The rain started again, pouring so hard I could barely see. Every shadow looked alive. I turned into another alley, hoping to lose him, and slammed into a wall. A dead end. I turned around. He was there, standing at the mouth of the alley, rain dripping from his hair, that crooked smile back on his face. "You never came back," he said. So I did. I pressed myself against the wall, shaking. "Please, David, I didn't mean to." He interrupted me. "You left me in the dark." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you know what it's like to drown, Ethan? To feel the world fade piece by piece while someone you love runs away?" Tears blurred my vision. "Stop, please stop." He took one step closer. The lights flickered. The sound of rushing water filled the alley. "Let me show you," he said. The ground split open. Water gushed from the cracks, freezing cold, pulling at my legs. I screamed as it rose around me, swirling higher until it reached my chest. He stood perfectly still, eyes black as the river. I fought to breathe, to move, to climb out, but the water was pulling me down. And beneath the surface, I saw faces, dozens of them, pale, open-mouthed, eyes wide, people I'd never seen before, all staring up at me. "Help us," one whispered. "Join us," another said. Then I felt his hand grab my wrist. When I came to, I was lying on the sidewalk outside my apartment. My clothes were soaked. My lungs felt like they were filled with ice. It was morning. The sun was up. Cars drove by like nothing had happened. I sat there for a long time, shivering. Maybe I'd fallen asleep at my desk. Maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing. But when I looked down at my hands, there were marks. Deep red bruises around my wrist, like fingers had been gripping me tight. That night, I tried not to think about it. I went to bed early, told myself it was stress, exhaustion, whatever. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of dripping water. I went to the bathroom. The faucet was off. The sound was coming from somewhere else. I followed it into the living room. The floor was wet. In the middle of the puddle was something small and rusted. A toy car. David's toy car. The one he'd been holding when he fell into the river. I left town the next day, quit my job, packed whatever I could carry, and I never told anyone what happened, not really. But sometimes, when I walk at night in a new city, I still hear it. Footsteps, following me. And every time I turn around, I see him, just standing there under the streetlight, dripping wet, smiling that same broken smile. And I know he's still waiting for me to come home.
If you like this story, then you should listen to this chilling story.
I never used to fear the dark. Growing up, I'd always laughed at people who said nighttime made them uneasy. To me, the dark was peaceful, quiet, forgiving, a place where the world slowed down and the noise stopped. But that was before that night, before I saw the man under the streetlight. It was my first week at a new job. Nothing exciting. A small accounting firm on the edge of town. A step up from my last gig, but the same soul-draining hours. That Friday, I stayed late. The others had gone home around 7, but I was still at my desk, finishing reports that no one else had bothered to do. By the time I looked at the clock, it was 11:48 p.m. The rain had stopped hours ago, leaving the streets slick and shining under the yellow glow of street lamps. I didn't have a car yet, so I decided to walk home. It wasn't far, maybe 25 minutes, and the quiet walk usually helped me clear my head. But that night, from the moment I stepped outside, something felt wrong. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of wet asphalt. The entire neighborhood was silent. No cars, no people, not even the hum of distant traffic. Just the sound of my own footsteps. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm echoed down the narrow road. Rows of identical houses watched me pass like silent witnesses. I tried putting on my earbuds, but my phone had died. So it was just me and the sound of my breathing. I don't know when I first noticed him. Maybe halfway home. When I turned onto Oak Ridge Street, there, beneath one of the flickering streetlights, stood a man. He wasn't moving. He wasn't even facing me, just standing there, motionless, staring at the pavement. At first, I thought maybe he was drunk or waiting for a ride. I didn't think much of it. I crossed the street to avoid him, keeping my head down. But when I glanced back, he was gone. The next block was darker. Most of the lights were out, and the houses were tucked behind tall hedges. I kept walking, trying not to look behind me. My heart had started to race for no reason I could explain. And then I heard it. Tap, tap. Not my footsteps. These were slower, heavier. Someone was walking behind me, matching my pace exactly. I froze. The sound stopped. I turned around. Nothing. The street was empty. I laughed nervously. "Get a grip, Daniel," I muttered to myself. "You're just tired." But as I turned back around, my heart nearly stopped. He was there, again, standing directly under the next streetlight, facing me this time. His face was half hidden in shadow, but I could make out enough. Pale skin, dark suit, no umbrella. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. I took a step back. My throat felt dry. "Hey man," I called out, forcing a shaky laugh. "You okay?" No answer. The wind picked up, carrying the faint smell of wet iron. I blinked, and he was gone again. I started walking faster, my shoes splashing through puddles. Every few seconds, I'd glance behind me, but the road stayed empty. Then I turned onto Birch Lane, my street. I was only 3 blocks from home. That's when I saw him again. This time, he wasn't under a light. He was in the middle of the road, his back turned toward me. His arms hung limply at his sides, his head tilted slightly, like he was listening. Something about that tilt made my stomach twist. "Hey," I shouted, "what do you want?" Slowly, he turned around, and my blood went cold. His face wasn't right. His features looked blurred, like someone had smeared wet paint over them. His eyes were hollow, not empty sockets, but dark voids that seemed to swallow the light around him. And when he spoke, his voice sounded like it came from far away. "You shouldn't have come back, Daniel." I froze. What did you say?" He took a step toward me. The streetlight above us flickered violently. "You left me too." I shook my head. "I don't know who you are." "Yes, you do." The voice was softer now, familiar. "You left me in the rain." A memory flashed in my mind, one I hadn't thought about in years. A field, a storm, a broken car, and someone lying in the mud. No, it couldn't be. That was 10 years ago. He couldn't still be. I stumbled backward. "You're not real." He smiled, a wide, awful grin that looked like it hurt to make. "Then why can you hear me?" The wind howled through the trees. The lights flickered again, and when they came back, he was gone. But the air felt heavier, like someone was standing inches behind me. I turned. Nothing. And then, whisper, right next to my ear. "Why didn't you help me?" I ran. I don't know how long or how far. My lungs felt like they were on fire. I didn't care about direction. I just wanted to get away from that voice. When I finally stopped, I realized I wasn't on my street anymore. The houses were gone. The road stretched endlessly in both directions. I turned around, and saw the same streetlight I'd passed 10 minutes ago. The same one. And under it stood the man. I don't remember screaming, but I must have. My vision blurred. My ears rang. I stumbled backward, tripping over the curb. The world around me twisted, the buildings bending, the road rippling like water. He started walking toward me, slow, deliberate. "You left me," he said again. "You promised you'd come back." I could barely breathe. "That was an accident," I shouted. "I tried to help you." His voice rose, the calm gone now. "You ran." The world shook. Streetlights burst one by one, showering sparks. Shadows stretched across the ground, reaching toward me like black hands. "You ran," he whispered again, "and you let me drown." The memory slammed into me. I was 23, driving home from a party with my coworker, Mark. It was raining hard. We were both drunk, stupid, laughing. We never saw the true. The crash sent us into the river. I got out, he didn't. By the time I crawled to the shore, the car was gone, and so was Mark. I told everyone I blacked out, that I didn't remember, but I did. I remembered leaving him there. The man's voice echoed through the street. "Now it's your turn, Daniel." The ground split open beneath me. Water surged up from below, icy and black. I tried to scream, but it filled my mouth, my lungs, dragging me down into darkness. Through the water, I saw him, Mark, his face pale and bloated, hair floating around him like seaweed. His eyes opened, milky white, and his mouth twisted into a grin. "Stay," he said. I thrashed, trying to swim upward, but hands, cold, wet hands, grabbed at my legs, pulling me deeper. "Stay with us." I screamed into the water, and everything went black. I woke up coughing on the side of the road. The sun was rising. Birds chirped. Cars passed like nothing had happened. I sat there, soaked and shivering, my throat raw from screaming. For a long time, I couldn't move. When I finally stood, I realized where I was, right outside my apartment building. I climbed the steps like a zombie, unlocked the door, and collapsed on the floor. I must have fallen asleep, because when I opened my eyes, it was night again. The room was dark, except for the faint yellow glow coming through the blinds. Streetlight glow. I stood slowly and walked to the window. Outside, directly beneath the streetlight, stood a man in a dark suit, dripping wet, staring up at me. I shut the blinds. My heart hammered in my chest. When I turned around, my reflection in the window glass didn't move. It just smiled and whispered, "You shouldn't have come back."
If you thought that story was scary, wait until you hear this next one.
I used to love the woods behind our old house. When I was a kid, I'd spend hours exploring there, building forts, climbing trees, pretending I was a ranger guarding the edge of civilization. My dad used to tell me to stay close because the forest remembers what happens in it. I never really understood what he meant. Now I do. It started 2 months after my father's funeral. He'd passed suddenly. A heart attack, they said. I'd been living 3 states away for years, so coming back to his small cabin in northern Maine felt like stepping into a ghost of my childhood. The place hadn't changed much. The same sagging porch, the same creaky steps, the same smell of pine and old wood. The forest still pressed close against the back of the property, dense and quiet. Too quiet. The first few nights, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard something, faint scratching on the walls, or soft rustling in the trees outside my window. I told myself it was animals, raccoons, owls, maybe even deer. But on the 4th night, I heard humming, a woman's voice. It was soft, almost like a lullaby, the kind of tune a mother might hum to a baby. The sound floated through the open window, carried on the cold wind. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. It was coming from the woods. The next morning, I checked around the cabin. The ground was covered in a thin layer of frost. No footprints, no signs of anyone having been there. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe it was the wind. But that night, I heard it again. The same song, only closer. I went to the window and peered out into the dark. The moonlight cut silver ribbons across the trees. At first, I saw nothing. Then, movement. Something pale. A woman was standing at the tree line. She wasn't moving, just standing there, half hidden in shadow. Her hair was long and black, and her skin looked so white it almost glowed. I couldn't make out her face. Her feet sank slightly into the frost-covered leaves, and even from that distance I could see that she was wrong. Too still, too silent. My throat tightened. "Hello?" I called. She didn't answer. She just tilted her head, a small, sharp motion like a bird hearing something strange. Then she stepped backward, into the darkness, and was gone. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I found something strange in the backyard. A line of small stones arranged neatly in a circle near the tree line. Inside it, a single dead crow, its eyes missing. That was enough for me. I packed a bag and drove into town, planning to stay at the small inn there for a few days. The innkeeper, an old woman named Martha, gave me a knowing look when I told her where I was staying. "Your daddy's place?" she said. "That's right by the old woods." I nodded. "Yeah, why?" She hesitated. "You seen her yet?" My blood ran cold. "Who?" Her eyes flicked toward the window. "The woman who sings." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. When I asked around, most people brushed me off, but one old man at the diner told me the story. They called her the Pale Woman of the Pines. According to him, she was a young woman who'd gone missing in the 1950s. Her fiancé was a logger who worked deep in those woods. One night, he came back to camp raving about something he'd seen, a white shadow following him. The next day, both of them vanished. A week later, searchers found a wedding dress hanging from a tree branch. Nothing else. Ever since, people said she wanders the forest, barefoot, humming, searching for someone who left her behind. I didn't want to believe it. Ghost stories are for tourists and campfires, not real life. But when I drove back to the cabin to grab a few things, I saw something that made my stomach twist. Footprints. Bare footprints, small and delicate, leading from the tree line all the way to my back door. I followed them with my They stopped right beneath my bedroom window, and there in the dirt was a symbol, a circle of small stones, just like before, with something placed inside. A piece of fabric, torn, white, and soaked in something dark. Blood. That night I stayed awake in the living room with every light on. Around midnight the power went out. Silence filled the cabin. Then, humming. Close. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it at the window. The beam cut through the darkness, landing on the trees. She was there, closer this time, maybe 20 feet away. Her face was clearer now, pale as milk, with deep black eyes that reflected no light. Her lips were blue, her expression empty. But when I looked at her long enough, something inside me shifted. She looked familiar. I whispered, "Who are you?" She stepped forward, one slow step at a time, her bare feet sinking into the mud. When she opened her mouth, her voice was barely audible, dry, rasping, like air escaping from a grave. My stomach dropped. "What? You left me in the cold!" I stumbled back, shaking my head. "I don't know you!" But even as I said it, a memory stirred, one I'd buried deep. A girl from my childhood. Her name was Clara. We used to play near the lake when I was little. She lived down the road, quiet, shy, always in a white dress. One winter afternoon, we were out skating on the frozen pond behind my house. The ice cracked beneath her feet. She screamed, and I ran. I was only 9. I didn't understand. I ran all the way home and told my dad she'd fallen. By the time he got there, it was too late. They never found her body. The woman outside smiled, slow and terrible. "You remember now," she whispered. The wind howled through the trees. I dropped the flashlight. The light hit the ground, spinning wildly, throwing shadows across the walls. When I looked back up, she was gone. But the humming didn't stop. It came from inside the house. I turned slowly. She was Sta. Her hair hung wet and tangled over her face, dripping onto the floorboards. Her white dress clung to her body, stained with dirt and lake water. Her skin was cracked, pale as bone. Her eyes were hollow. "Why did you run?" she whispered. I stumbled backward until my back hit the wall. "Clara, I was just a kid. I didn't mean to." "You left me alone." Her voice rose, sharp and shrill, like the scream of ice splitting open. "You watched me sink." The windows shattered. The lights flickered and died. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing at the edge of the lake. The moon was high, the ice black and glistening. She stood on the frozen surface, barefoot, her dress fluttering in the wind. "Come back," she whispered. "Come with me." I took a step forward, my breath fogging in the cold air. Her hand reached out, thin, frozen, trembling. I hesitated, then felt the ground crack beneath my feet. The ice groaned. "Don't," I whispered. "Come back," she said again, and the ice shattered. I woke up gasping in my bed. Morning light poured through the window. It was just a dream. It had to be. But when I got up and looked out the window, I froze. There in the frost, just beyond the porch, were 2 sets of footprints. Mine and hers, leading toward the woods. That was 3 weeks ago. I've tried to leave this place, but every road loops back to the same dirt path, the same trees. Every night, I hear her humming. Sometimes I see her reflection in the window. Sometimes I feel her cold hand brush against my neck when I close my eyes. The forest remembers what happens in it, and it doesn't forgive.
If you thought that story was scary, wait until you hear this next one.
I don't know if it started with the creek or with my mother's silence. Maybe both. After she died, I came back to my hometown, the kind of small mountain town that barely existed on maps. You'd miss it if you blinked while driving by. Her old house sat near the edge of the forest, the kind of place that stayed cold even when the sun was out. The air always smelled faintly of damp wood and earth. I'd planned to stay for just a week. Then the nights started changing. The first time I saw her was a Tuesday. I'd been cleaning out my mother's room, sorting old clothes, boxes, faded photos. I found one I didn't remember. Me, about 6 years old, standing near the creek that ran behind the property. And next to me, a girl. She looked about my age, barefoot, pale, wearing what looked like a white summer dress. Her face was turned slightly away from the camera, her hair falling over her shoulder. I frowned. "Who's that?" I whispered aloud. The back of the photo said, in my mother's handwriting, Eliza, 2001. But I never knew any Eliza. That night, the power went out around 2 a.m. I lit a candle and walked through the hallway. The air felt heavier than usual, like the house was breathing. That's when I heard it, the sound of water, trickling, flowing, coming from outside. I went to the window and looked toward the woods. Through the fog, I could just make out the creek glinting under the moonlight. And someone standing beside it, a girl, barefoot, wearing white. I froze. The candle flickered in my hand. Her head was tilted, like she was listening. Her long hair clung to her shoulders, wet and tangled. Even from that distance, I could tell she was staring right at me. The water around her rippled, though she never moved. Then slowly, she lifted one hand and waved. Just once. The candle went out. When I woke up the next morning, I told myself it had been a dream, some leftover memory, sparked by. But when I walked down to the creek later that day, I saw footprints in the mud, small ones, bare, and next to them, something shiny, half buried in the dirt. It was an old silver bracelet. The engraving on the inside read, E.M. I took it to the sheriff's office in town. He squinted at it, chewing the end of a pencil. "E.M.?" he muttered. "You say you found this by the old creek?" "Yeah, why?" He leaned back in his chair. "That area used to belong to the Millers. Their daughter, Eliza Miller, went missing back in 2001. Same year your mom wrote that note." The room suddenly felt colder. "What happened to her?" "They never found her. Said she used to play near that creek all the time." I left the office with a tight feeling in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep again. The rain started around midnight. Soft at first, then harder, slapping against the windows. And through the storm, I heard something else. A faint humming. It came from the woods. I pressed my face to the glass. Through the rain and lightning, I saw her again, standing at the edge of the trees, head tilted toward the house. Only this time, she wasn't alone. Something else was in the water beside her. Darker, taller, barely visible through the rain. A shape. And when the lightning flashed again, it was gone. By the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a flashlight and went out to the creek. The rain had stopped, but everything was dripping. Trees, moss, even the air felt wet. My boots squelched in the mud as I moved closer to the water. "Hello," I called. "Eliza?" The woods didn't answer. Then the beam of my flashlight hit something pale near the water's edge. It was a doll. Old, waterlogged, its face cracked and eyes missing. As I reached down to pick it up, a cold hand grabbed my wrist. I screamed and dropped the light. The beam spun wildly, landing on a face inches from mine. White, dripping, half. Her eyes were empty, but her mouth moved, whispering something I couldn't hear. "What do you want?" I choked out. She pointed at the creek, at the water, and in the reflection, I saw another face. My mother's. I stumbled backward, falling into the mud. "No," I whispered. "You're not real." Eliza's expression didn't change. "She promised," she said softly, her voice like rushing water. "She said she'd help me." "Help you?" She lied. The water rippled again, and I saw something beneath the surface, dark shapes, long fingers reaching upward. "She gave me to the water," Eliza said, "and now she belongs to it too." I ran. I didn't stop until I was inside the house. The door slammed and locked behind me. I found the old photo again, the one with Eliza and me by the creek. This time I noticed something I hadn't before. In the background, behind us, my mother was standing at the water's edge, her hands on Eliza's shoulders. Her expression, distant, almost mournful. Over the next few days, the house began to change. Dark stains appeared on the walls, damp, seeping marks that smelled faintly of rot and river water. I tried cleaning them, but they came back. At night, I could hear footsteps moving slowly through the hallway. Soft splashes, like bare feet walking on wet ground. Once, I heard a whisper right outside my bedroom door. "Why didn't you stop her?" I tried to leave the next morning. Packed a bag, started the car, drove down the winding dirt road toward town. But halfway there, I saw something that made me slam the brakes. A figure standing in the middle of the road. It was my mother. Her clothes were soaked, her hair matted with mud. She looked at me, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Don't go," she said. I blinked and she was gone. When I got back to the house, the front door was open. Water pooled across the floor. The air smelled of algae and decay. I followed the wet footprints down the hall to my mother's old room. Inside, The floorboards were cracked and swollen. Something glinted beneath them. I knelt and pried one up. A small metal box lay inside, rusted shut. I forced it open. Inside were three things. The same silver bracelet I'd found at the creek, a lock of wet black hair, and a note written in my mother's handwriting. It said, "I couldn't save her. The water took her, and now it's waiting for me." The house groaned. I turned and saw her. Eliza stood in the doorway, her skin pale as the moonlight, her eyes hollow. Water dripped from her hands, pooling at her feet. "She promised," she whispered again. The floor shuddered beneath me. Water began to seep up through the cracks, rising fast. Eliza smiled, a slow, lifeless smile. "You'll keep her promise for her." The water surged. I tried to run, but cold hands wrapped around my ankles, pulling me down. The last thing I saw before the world went dark was her face, calm, almost peaceful, as the water closed over my head. They found the house 3 days later. The sheriff said the flood had washed through unexpectedly, collapsing part of the foundation. They never found my body. But sometimes, hikers say they hear humming by the creek, a soft, sad tune. And if they listen closely, they swear they can see two figures standing in the water, one in white, and one that looks just like me,